It should particularly be noted that all the galaxies discovered so far by the modern science are contained in the nearest of the seven skies according to the Quran. Statement number 2.4. We have adorned the nearest of the skies with the adornment of the stars. Chapter 37, verse 6. The Quran also states that all the seven skies are located one above the other. Statement number 2.5. The one who created seven skies one above the other. Chapter number 67, verse number 3. When all the heavenly bodies discovered so far are contained in the nearest sky, and when the skies themselves are placed one above the other, it could rightly be inferred from it that only the nearest sky is visible and that the remaining six of them lie concealed from us. We shall now discuss the composition of these six invisible skies too in the light of the following four statements of the Quran, which shall reinforce our present contention even further. Statement number 3. Don't you observe as to how the Almighty has created seven skies one above the other as layers, and in them made the moons luminous and the sun's lamps? Chapter number 71, verse numbers 15 to 16. In the same way as the suns and the moons were used in the previous statement in their singular forms in the context of all the galaxies of the nearest sky, here too they have appeared in a similar fashion in relation to all the seven skies. The customary alif lam too has clearly been prefixed to each of them, indicating their use as generic nouns. Thus, suns and moons are very much the part and parcel of not just the present sky, but that of the remaining six of them as well. Yet again, with the existence of the moons, the companion earths too are convincingly established in all the seven skies. And with the uniformity of expression employed concerning all the seven skies here, it could be deduced from it that there also exists uniformity between each of them concerning the number of earths they comprise. And when the nearest sky contains a minimum of 100 billion of them, then similar would be the case with each of the remaining skies too. It is now very much obvious as to why the generic alif lam has been prefixed to the suns and the moons, appearing particularly in the current statement alone in contrast to the previous one when they are being used in their generic forms at both of these places. It is in reality being intended to convey through this difference of expression in the previous statement that even though the suns and the moons do appear in their generic forms there too, they are however not present in their entirety only in the first of the skies, but in comparison to their sum total in all the skies, their number is merely partial in nature. So, the alif lam was prefixed to them only where they were to denote their total number rather than the partial one. This prefix in the current statement is therefore simultaneously indicative of their usage in their generic forms as well as their entirety. It is thus very much evident that both of the current and the previous statements are mutually interpreting the apparent ambiguities present in either of them with remarkable ease. If the latter statement is effectively clearing the doubt concerning the generic nature of the suns and the moons occurring in the former statement, the former statement itself is specifying the actual number of earths being affirmed in the latter. Thus, the latter statement quite convincingly consolidates and supplements the former. We find another statement of the Quran in absolute conformity with the present one in the following words. Statement number 4. Say, can you be ungrateful to him who has created the earth in 2 days and equate others with him? Remember, he is the Lord of all the worlds. He has placed in the earth stabilizers from above, blessed them, and determined their foods in 4 days, alike for those who question. He then turned towards the skies, which were in the state of smoke then, and said to them and the earth, both of you submit yourselves willingly or unwillingly. They said, we do submit ourselves willingly. Then he secured them, that is the earth, in the 7 skies in 2 days, and revealed in each of the skies its due command. And we have adorned the nearest sky too with a few lamps and safeguarded it. Such is the estimation of the Almighty, the All-Knowing. Chapter number 41, verse numbers 9 to 12. 4 plus 2, the 6th-day creation account here, comprises the formation and coming into being of all the natural phenomena in existence today, as the Quran says. Statement number 4.1. He created the skies and the earth and all that exists in between in 6 days. Chapter number 25, verse number 59. It flows from it hence that the current statement is illustrative of the state of these phenomena prior to their creation in their current form, and as to how did all the 7 skies and the other bodies present therein come into being. Thus, a mention is being made here in line with the previous statement concerning the creation of all the earths in existence in all the 7 skies in their generic form, rather than that of our own solitary one. Another significant argument favoring this contention is that when it has taken a total of 6 days for the creation of all that exists, then how can it take exactly the 2/3 of it for the creation of merely a single earth? It should be borne in mind that the total mass of the earth pales utterly before that of the present universe. It is roughly 1.3 million times smaller than just our single sun. The sun itself is around 400 billion times smaller than the galaxy. The galaxy is about 100 billion times smaller than the total matter discovered so far in the universe. Furthermore, the proportion of matter discovered so far to the space is just an atom of hydrogen to 7.6 cubic meters of space. So, the gigantic nature and the true expanse of the universe could very well be imagined. In addition, there are 6 more skies and the matter contained in them as well. It unmistakably indicates thus that the earth too must be inestimable. Nevertheless, while basing ourselves on the enormous mass of the 7 skies and their boundless frontiers, and arguing upon the existence of innumerable earths commensurate with their formation in two-thirds of the total time of creation, it has to be remembered that the earths do not exist in a space on their own. Their very existence depends on that of their companion stars. The stars themselves owe their subsistence to that of the galaxies, and so on. This is because all the heavenly bodies hold each other through an invisible force known as the universal law of gravitation, to which the Quran too stunningly refers to as the invisible pillars. Statement number 4.2. He has created the skies with pillars invisible to you. Chapter number 31, verse number 10. The first 4 days of creation compulsorily includes the formation of all the earths, their companion suns, and all the other heavenly bodies bound together under the universal law of gravitation. Thus, the singling out of the earth with a special mention, however, signifies their central character, and their particular existence and preponderance is firmly established in every nook and corner of all the 7 skies. Besides, if the prevalence of the earth in all the skies was argued upon in the previous statement with a mere mention of the attendant moons, a similar case is being made out in the current one of the compulsory existence of the accompanying suns with a solitary mention of the earth in all the skies. Thus, arguing upon the existence of suns through that of the earth once again reinforces the far-reaching reality that it is the latter that enjoys centrality of endurance all through the skies, and that the subsistence of the former is purely secondary in nature and relative to that of the latter. In other words, the fundamental objective behind the creation of the suns is their service to their respective earths and those inhabiting them. Even though the earths appear to remain subservient to the suns by revolving around them, but in reality it is the latter that are at the constant service of the former and those who dwell in them by providing them with the means of sustenance. The Quran very clearly points to this fact in the following words. Statement number 4.3. He has subjugated to you the night and the day, and the sun and the moon. Chapter number 16, verse number 12. When the sun has been subjugated to man, then its servitude to his domicile earth too is also established beyond reasonable doubt. It flows from it that the existence of the servant suns is pointless without that of the master earths. In principle thus, wherever in the skies exist the suns, with them exist the earths too. Basing on the generally comprehensible suns, a very powerful argument is being made here through these statements with regard to the existence with them of the concealed earth thus. That is to say that On the strength of the realities science could reasonably perceive, we are also being acquainted today with those too which generally fall beyond its scope. The first Quranic confirmation of these rational contentions could be found in the very first verse of the current statement. The phrase, "the one who has created the earth," here is immediately being introduced in an extremely eloquent and comprehensive manner as "the Lord of all the worlds." This very bluntly suggests that the latter phrase has been substituted for the former. In other words, with the very mention of the creation of the earth, the formation of all the heavenly bodies mutually bound together under the law of gravitation is meant here. For the expression "all the worlds" to mean all the natural phenomena in existence would be dealt with in detail later. It thus shows that earth has once again been used here as a generic noun. Further corroboration in this regard could be found in the remaining verses as well. Accordingly, after the creation of all the earth, the Creator turned towards the skies that were in a state of smoke then. Remember, the sky too is similarly appearing in its singular form as do the earth, to denote that both of them have been used as generic nouns. This is the reason why both of these genders have been addressed to in the dual form initially in the passage, "Both of you submit yourselves willingly or unwillingly." But in the very next verse, in an extremely marvelous fashion, each of them has been separated in its plural form as well. If the earth were indicated with the pronoun them, the number 7 has been assigned to the skies. That is, when both the genera of the earth and the skies submitted themselves willingly before the Creator, He secured the former in the latter. Imagine once again that hadn't the earth been multiple in number, how could have they been secured in all the 7 skies then? Razi too has inferred all the earths in existence here. Moreover, the literal mention of the compulsory existence of the companion suns hitherto concealed deliberately by contenting with the creation in all the 7 skies of the mere earth is significantly being revealed towards the end through the expression, "and we have adorned the near sky with a few lamps," implying that the present discussion is being carried out in the context of virtually all the earths and their accompanying suns right from the very beginning itself, and confirming the logical interpretation we have resorted to in this regard earlier. Also, notice the sagacious divergence of expression employed here. If a mention of only the earth in all the 7 skies was made in the earlier part of these verses by considering the existence of the suns, in the latter part, on the contrary, only the suns have been mentioned in the nearest sky, and the already established earths have been deliberately left out. This very clearly suggests that, just like the Quran argues upon the certain existence of the earth with a simple mention of the accompanying moons, it also establishes direct correlation between the earth and the attendant suns with a mention merely of any one of the two. And lamps here as well is appearing as a common noun devoid of the prefix alif lam, indicating the suns and their companion earths are comparatively lesser in number than those present in the remaining 6 skies. This is why the wisdom behind the creation and dispersal of such a great number of earths in all the skies is being described in the end as such is the estimation of the Almighty and the All-Knowing.